evening, everyone. We're here for our February 7th, 2022 audit committee meeting. Our executive session ran a little late, so apologies that we're starting a few minutes late. We have a full agenda, so we'll move quick. Item number 1 is to review the minutes from our December 6th, 2021 meeting. The minutes were distributed. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the minutes? Okay. Item number 2 is the claims auditor reports. So since our last meeting in December, there were only 2 exceptions, which is great news. The total amount of claims with exceptions was $323.02. One related to the athletic department, we had to do with lodging for the cross-country team, and the other was, it looks like to make a key.
Yes, to
For
make
52 cents. Francine submitted a report. Anyone have questions about that? Great. I'm going to turn it over to Jim for item number 3, which is an overview of the budget process.
Sure. So what we've done in this budget process is we started out working with the principals to say, okay, you need to talk to the people in your building to get an idea what they're looking for, what they think they need, what classes there might be that we aren't providing that might be provided, and give us that as a proposal by a specific date. So after that, Frank and I sat down with all of the supervisors, directors, and principals to say, okay, here are your requests, defend them, let's go through this, let's look at it. This one's yes, this one's no, and here's why. So based on that, we put together this draft budget initially to say, here are the things we've approved, here are the things we haven't. So they're off to the side. Governor's proposal comes in, we put that information in and work towards getting to a 0 gap, which we were fortunate to get to as a right out the gate at this point. That's fairly unusual. That's the very general overview of the initial budgeting process.
Can I add a couple things? One of the other things that we do, is that we look at our facilities committee, curriculum committee, and other conversations that we've been having throughout the year of what the board priorities have been. And then we add those things as well into the conversations. And then, as we're looking at the strategic plan, we're then now looking in future, saying, okay, what are we doing this year? What can we phase in next year? How can we phase in the next thing in the following year? So then it's a sustainable budget throughout. Because that's one of the key points is, well, how do we create a budget now? And then how do we create a sustainable budget with growth for the years to come?
How do we not put ourselves into a position where we're going to have huge gaps going out into the future?
Right, so can I ask Jim?
Yep.
So at this point last year, we were projecting, around 400,000
Roughly that.
deficit. So seems if history repeats itself, we're going to end up with a surplus when we get those final aid funds.
For this current year, I would say yes, but that's based on other factors.
Yep.
For next year, this is a much closer budget, so I'm not sure we're going to see the surpluses that we've seen in the past. That's kind of the planning to put in the allocated fund balance of 2.5%, because in a normal year, you spend 97.5% of your budget, so we want to balance that out. I would love, my perfect year would be 97.5% revenue, 97.5% expenses, and balance right out, and we're good. That's never happened in my old career, I'll tell you that. So that's the general overview. If there are any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
No, I think we're in a good position this year. We're running, and we'll get to this in the function level some status report. We're running under projected. Not in all categories, but as a whole. Did you want to comment, Jim, too, on the governor's fee proposal you mentioned there?
Yep, so I provided the actual run from the governor's proposal. And then I provided the summary page that I put together that shows what we actually think will come in. current year and the upcoming year. And I added a column there to show you the projected full foundation aid that's projected that caused that significant increase from 3.7 to 4.3, so that you can see that.
So it looks like the differences between the governor's bond and your projections are OCZ and transportation aid.
Correct.
So what's the reasoning?
So those are generally areas where the aid gets overestimated because of the way we do the ST3. We always put in the entire amount of the budget, so it's always going to be a little over what it actually comes in at.
Thank you. All right, anyone have questions on any of that so far? Great. All right, item number 5 is the tax cap explanation. I know you do this for us every year, multiple times. Might as well do it again.
So the tax cap, as we know, is called the 2% tax cap by everyone except business officials. And that's not what it is. There is a portion of it that's capped at 2%, the CPI. There's also portions that have the growth factor in the tax base. So how many new properties have you added compared to how many you had? Then you also have the local share of capital projects, including purchasing buses. For last year, it's a deduct. For this year upcoming, it's an add. So those are offsetting usually. Taking all that into account, you come down with a number that you're allowed to tax at. So this year, the estimated increase at this point, and it can change, little wiggles, but 4.05%. So that's a significant increase. We haven't seen that for a number of years. I did do a summary of the tax cap versus what we've actually gone out at for the past 5 years. And for the past 2 years, we've gone up the cap. 3 years before that, it was just slightly below. This next year is projected as significant, about $300,000 difference between what we could and what we plan to.
And so I know we'll get into this in the presentations in the full board meeting, but we're not proposing to increase the levy at that point.
No, that is not the proposal at this point.
I think our taxpayers would be happy. Okay. Any questions on that? All right, good. Okay, so next up we have,
Probably going to the microphone.
Oh, I can do that.
the November, December, with the lunch fund out there.
Yes. And again, it's all good news. Status quo. The return on reimbursements is significant both for November and December. We obviously budgeted less than we're getting. And in alcohol, one thing with I believe it was November and December's reimbursement. Paul was using the child nutrition website, as he always does, to input claims, determine what his reimbursement rates are going to be based on what's in the system. And the system was using the wrong rates. So we were supposed to have been, oh, thank you so much. We were supposed to have been using the summer rates all along, but the system was putting in something different. So we're actually going to get more money back than we anticipated. So it's been just crazy.
And that's not reflected in this.
No, I think I made the correction in January's number, so you'll see that in January. Also, one other small correction on the December other sales actual column. I forgot to split out the $16,000 into high school and elementary school. Not a big deal, same number, just split between the two buildings, and I'll send you an updated P&L for that. The drivers, again, are the fact that we're getting back a ton of reimbursement money for revenues. And the main drivers for the expense increases is of cost of food and supplies.
Have the supply chain issues eased at all?
I can't answer that.
I don't believe that they have significantly. I mean, I know personally when I'm purchasing stuff, I'm seeing things out, so I wouldn't be surprised at all if Paul seeing similar things. I can certainly check with them and follow up, provide more information.
Oh, it's okay. We'll see how it goes. Thank you. I think, anything else?
Only that at the end of December, we were actually up $13,000.
Wow.
We started the year at 8,000 and we now have $62,000.
So this
And I see it continuing.
I think so.
And Jim, have you heard anything about them going back to regular rates come July, or do you think it will stay with the summer rate?
Oh, that's tough to project at this point, because that's going to depend on probably some legislative action at the federal level, so.
Well, we can see this may continue. We're in the light. It's great. And I want to thank you. This is Robin's last.
I just see it. I just see it's great.
So, yeah, we're the ones. With me too.
Well, I'm always available for help.
Thank you.
Robin, what's the significance of your mask?
This is the Michigan State Spartans.
I thought it was.
What is it?
Michigan State.
As an Ohio State Buckeye, I present that.
No, I'm a coach's okay.
Good for you.
Bite your tongue.
No, not that I'm aware of. Okay.
I was actually born and raised in
Where are you now?
the Detroit area.
I've always wanted to get to a game, but this is a long part.
Well, we're gonna have plenty of time.
I know.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
It has been a pleasure.
Ours too. All right, so number 7 on the agenda is the function level summary report, and Jim would see it for us. As I mentioned earlier, across the board, we are, I forgot my glasses, so I can't read these numbers, but. I think we're running like $1 million plus under projections.
So one factor you have to look at, so 26.9 is the projected budget in total, but you have to pull out the 1.1 million in federal funds that moved over. So
Right.
call it 25.8.
Yep.
We think we're going to be a little ahead of that on revenues. We think we're going to come in about probably 25 on expenses. So there will be some surplus based on where we are looking right now.
Anyone have questions? No? All right, thank you for the meeting. I think we have completed the agenda. At this point, we can adjourn. So we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you.